Hello everybody, Brad Johnson here. And in this video, I'm going to be talking more about debunking the myths about the higher self. So doing this work for 15 years and being able to successfully connect with the higher self basically on a daily basis, I hear a lot of people, usually when I do a lot of sessions, talking about what they think the higher self represents. One of the biggest myth or myth conceptions, as I'll call it, is believing that you are here and the higher self is here. Thinking that as I look outside, I'm trying to race, I'm trying to get my way up to the higher self. I want to meet the higher self. I want to see the higher self. I want to interact with the higher self. I want to be able to feel the being of the higher self out here somewhere. The higher self is you, always has been you, always will be you. And we still get into this state of comparison of, Brad, how can I get to the higher self? How am I ever going to meet the higher self? Am I ever going to meet him? Am I ever going to meet her? Is he going to come to me? Is she going to come to me? Again, you're looking at the idea of something that is outside of you. And those are the veils that we put over our eyes, giving us the impression that the higher self is some higher being up in the clouds, giving you the impression that in order for you to truly connect with the higher, you have to find him, you have to find her, and feeling that you have to go through this chase in life. Just, when am I going to be able to meet the higher self? I really want to connect with the higher self. I really want to connect, you can even say, with the soul. And I still think that that's something outwards. So the myth pertaining to the higher self is the feeling that it is external, is the feeling that it is another being, that it's some other force other than yourself that you basically have to merge with. That would be incorrect. There is a union between the lower and the higher self, but it comes through you. It comes through your own particular intention to connect deeper into those divine levels of yourself. And it really just comes down into the point of surrender. It really comes down into the point of centering. Really comes down to the point of stillness. Because you are the higher self here and now. It's not something that you need to chase after. It's not something you have to seek. It's not something you have to run towards or feel like you need to get the higher self's approval. And that leads us into the second myth. I feel like I need to completely change everything that I am to connect with the higher self or to be at one with the higher self. I need to change absolutely everything that I am. And I feel like I need to meet an approval with the higher self. And if I don't get that approval, well, then I'm just going to be stuck as this lower physical ego self for the rest of my life. And that too is another myth, right? You have these moments where you have this incredible clarity. There is something within you that just in that moment feels profound, feels liberated, feels free, feels as if it is completely saturated with divine wisdom. And it's here and it's gone, right? You didn't need to climb to a mountaintop to reach that. It just came to you when you became quiet. It just came to you when you no longer thought that you had to meet up to some type of approval standard in being able to connect with the higher self. It just came to you. You're having a conversation. All of a sudden you say something truly mesmerizing. You say something truly outstanding, incredible, wise, divine, and then it goes. What happened there? I don't know what happened. I was just having a conversation and just all this beautiful knowledge just flew through me, and I don't know what happened there. So you didn't need to make an uphill climb. You basically were at a point to where the higher and the lower converged. And that is all you're really looking at when it comes to a higher self, right? It's not about trying to get approval. It's not about trying to feel like, I need to completely walk the path of the higher self. I can't show any particular type of emotions. I have to, just throw these feelings out of me. I have to just throw away all these tendencies. Everything that makes me human basically has to go, right? No, and that would be completely incorrect. You are absolutely capable of keeping your emotions, of keeping your feelings, of keeping your thoughts. Okay? Those are not things that have to go. It's the tendencies where you think that that has to go, that has to go. Right? The tendencies of thinking you need to give up your emotions, the tendencies that you need to give up your feelings, the tendencies that you need to give up your thoughts, that you give up all of the characteristics that represent who and what you are. That would not be correct. Because the higher self has attributes, right? And those attributes that you have, right, is the shining essence of what the higher self is. Right? Everything that represents yourself as a personality, everything that represents how you think, how you feel, how your emotions are played out through yourself. Well, those are attributes, okay? But it's the tendencies. It's you being too harsh on yourself, thinking you need a higher self-approval, thinking that you need to get a thumbs up from the divine. And so, okay, we accept him now. He or she is not being a jerk anymore, so here's the higher self. Okay, it does not work that way. So again, we have to remember higher self is not outside of us. We have to remember that we're not seeking approval for the higher self as well too. We're not trying to get a gold star relating to what we feel the higher self is. And so we come to the third myth representing the higher self, and that is the idea of overtraining, right? Feeling that you need to meditate every single day so that you can reach the higher self, feeling that you need to say thousands and thousands of mantras, thousands and thousands of prayers, doing all of these particular forms of meditative approaches, inner approaches externally to where you feel, well, I'm just going to keep doing this until I reach the higher self. But that again is like chasing a mirage in the desert. It's not about how much you meditate. It's not about how many mantras you perform. It's not about how many mudras you perform. It's not about how many prayers you make per day or how many affirmations you make per day. To think that at some particular point it's just going to click and all of a sudden the higher self is who I am now. No, right? And this becomes the idea of over-executing, again, over-analyzing, over-practicing, right? Over-stimulating yourself with too much of the idea of meditation. And that's not the idea. It's like I said earlier, that you're just going along your day, all of a sudden you get a profound moment. It's that moment that hits you, where you say something profound, where you perform something profound, and you never expected it to happen. So we become very, very obsessed with the idea of trying to do practices, trying to do all of this work to almost an excessive level, where we feel that if I don't do that, the higher self's not going to come, okay? So it's not about overworking. It's not about feeling like you need to set up a schedule. I need to meditate at least 2 or 3 hours per day. And if I don't do that, oh my God, I'll never see the higher self. So again, this is where that excessiveness and that obsessiveness relating to try to do so much work to bring the higher self is what you feel is necessary, and that would be incorrect. Okay? It really doesn't involve that. It's getting out of all of these tendencies of what you think you need to do. Right? What you think you need to do is the very thing that you need to clear away. So whether it's where you think that the higher self is an outside being, that again you're trying to get the higher self's approval, and that you're trying to overwork to try to just become the higher self. Right? It doesn't work that way. It is about just being yourself. It's about being natural. Because at any particular time, if you feel you're inauthentic, you're going to remain within your own ego. You're going to remain within the physicalized self. Because you're shrouding yourself in this bubble. And nothing can penetrate that bubble because you have all of these tendencies and mindsets of what you think you need to be rather than just being who you are. And that's it, right? You do not have to go into a cave and meditate for 20 years, 8 hours a day, or 10 hours a day, or 12 hours a day, eating out of a rice bowl, right? You do not need to run to India and seek a guru and basically just get ready to do all of these practices, all of these sadhanas, believing that that is how you are going to be one with the higher self, right? This is nothing with regards to gurus or masters or anything of that nature pertaining to teachers, right? They can help you, but again, if you are clinging to them, that's what's going to cause a prevention, prevention of actually being able to connect with the higher self, where you're simply just on your own as the ego, physicalized self, right? When we look in the idea of having a teacher, having a guru or anything of that nature, right? One who has basically reached that state where they are one with the higher self, that's one of the first things they will tell you as well too, is they look for your authenticity. They look for your naturalness. They see who you are. And that's exactly why they agree to help you. Even if I'm looking at it because, I have my own students, I have my own academy, right? And I'm helping people along. I would rather find one person who authentically feels like every fiber in their being is wanting them to get to know themselves and realize who and what they truly are, rather than choosing 1,000 people who are simply curious, right? If I had that one person, that one student, who basically just called to me and said, Brad, I want this more than anything I could ever say. Every fiber in my being wants to connect to the divine, wants to connect to God. I would spend a lot of time with that person, rather than 1,000 people saying, "Oh, we're just curious, just kind of curious, just kind of feeling things out." Okay. So very little time with those people, a lot of time with that specific person, right? And that is what a guru, a teacher, a master, a guide, a helper really looks for in someone. Again, someone who really has that authenticity, not a person who's scheduling everything. Okay, I'm scheduling. Okay, 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock is meditating with the higher self. Okay, 7 to 7:30 is my supper break, and then 7:30 onward. Oh, okay, meditating more with the higher self. Okay, that's not authentic, right? If you're trying to plan to connect to the higher self, I can pretty much tell you you're going to fail. Okay, and that would probably be the fourth myth, is trying to plan to get to the higher self. Okay, there is nothing wrong with having an intention, right? Having that intention, but letting that intention grow, let it expand, let it work to evolve you, let it be susceptible to the state of change. Not saying, oh my goodness, I'm going off course because I did a mantra that I was never trained to do, or I was doing this prayer that I was never trained to do, or I was doing this practice or sadhana that I was never ever told to do. Oh, I can't do that. That's going to be weird. That's going to go against my schedule, and I'm going to just blow up after that. It's not going to go anywhere. Okay, that's what's holding you back. That's the shackle that's wrapped around you. Okay, so let's reflect on those myths. Let's reflect on feeling that, to debunk that myth, thinking that the higher self is outside of you. No, it is not. You are the higher self. You always are the higher self. Again, it's just a blinder. It's a veil that you have put upon yourself to give the impression of thinking that you're here and the higher self is here, right? So we're debunking that myth. You are the higher self. That you need to, number 2, seek the higher self's approval. There is no approval to seek. It's just you going like this hamster on a wheel, trying to feel that you need to accomplish all of these tasks and feel that the higher self needs to give you a thumbs up, and then you can come and hang out with a higher self. No, it's all about the nature of the lower and the higher coming together through the nature of surrender, through the nature of stillness, through the nature of silence, through the nature of authenticity, right? Number 3, looking into the idea of feeling that you need to overwork. You need to perform so many practices, right? You have to constantly meditate at this time, you have to do this, and you have to do that. And like I said, that is a tendency that you need to drop all together. The more that you're just letting all of those things just go, right? And just being yourself, being uniquely who and what you are, that's what's going to assist you in your rise. That's what's going to bring you from the higher to the lower to the higher, and they're going to converge together in the middle, right? Really, the whole key here is to be your authentic self. That's what matters the most. And then again, this is where we come into the fourth myth, trying to plan to go to the higher self, trying to plan to be the higher self, scheduling everything and thinking you have to do all of these different things to getting you the idea of saying, oh, once I get all these things, maybe after a few months, poof, I'm the higher self all the time, and that's it, right? It's not about scheduling. It's not about preconceiving, right? Because spirit does not work that way. It is not about the idea where you feel like you need to create this gigantic charter for yourself, to reach some type of success or some type of merit that will enable you to connect with the higher self and be the higher self altogether, right? That is a myth we need to debunk. It all comes down to authenticity. Yes, you want to work, but don't let that work cloud you into thinking that this is what you have to do, or else nothing else happens. Or I need to spend so much time in these preconcepts. When I decide to just go and meditate, even though I have an intention, I would like to connect with the higher self, I let that meditation guide me. I let that practice that I do expand me, right? And that's what you have to look at. You have to look at something that is alive. You have to look at the livingness of who you are. The higher self is alive. It's not some robot. It's not some mechanical means. It's not some practicum or idealization or integration on an intellectual level that as soon as you accomplish this test and this exam, hey, the higher self and I are one now because I got an A on my report card, right? So you're getting out of that scheduling. You're getting out of these preconcepts. You're letting yourself be authentic. You're letting yourself grow. You're letting yourself evolve and letting the natural higher and lower come into union, come into a convergence. And that happens naturally. It happens through livingness and authenticity. So thank you so much for checking out this video. I look forward to speaking to you in the next video. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below, or you can always drop me an email through newearthteachings.com on my contact page. Blessings to you all. Thank you so much. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaskar, and may it be well with you. Bye for now.